Okay, so here we have the cerebellum from your Netter book. We're going to go over some of the contents in here and how signals get passed around, how they get in and out, all that stuff. Okay, so down here I've drawn kind of a crude representation of a cross-section containing the cerebellum, and on the inside here in green I've drawn kind of where the arbor vitae is. That's in white up here. These are the white tracks. So we are going to take a little cut right here. We're going to come down here and we're going to draw the cortex. So we'll keep it consistent. Up here will be the outside. So I guess we'll just say air. Next we're going to have a couple layers. Okay, so this down here is going to be the arbor vitae. Here we're going to have the granular layer. Here we have the Purkinje layer. And up here we have the molecular layer. Alright, let's start with the Purkinje layer. Let's try to figure out what's going on in here. Let's do red. Okay, so in this layer we're going to have Purkinje cell bodies. Cells have dendrites that extend to the molecular layer. Purkinje cells also have axons that extend down through the granular layer and into the arbor vitae, and then they connect with deep nuclei in the cerebellum. Okay, the next type of cell we're going to talk about is the granule cells. These have their cell bodies in the granular layer. And their axons travel up into the molecular layer and split in parallel lines to form parallel fibers. These parallel fibers synapse with the dendrites of the Purkinje cells. So let's draw the connections here. Okay. Granule cells also have a number of dendrites which stay in the granular layer. Along with the granular cells in this layer, we have the Golgi cells. These are excited by the parallel fibers and inhibit the granule cells. So as you can see here, this is a direct feedback that prevents the granule cells from being overexcited. Also in this layer, what color should we use here? Let's use brown. Also in the granular layer, we have basket cells. These are excited by the parallel fibers as well and inhibit the Purkinje cells with an axon that wraps around the body of the Purkinje cells. Both the Golgi cells and the basket cells use GABA because they're inhibitory. Okay, so before we go on with this, the input to the system, let's review what's going on here. So, Purkinje cells are inhibitory. So, activating or exciting these Purkinje cells will cause the deep cerebellar nuclei to stop firing. Granule cells are excitatory. using glutamate as the neurotransmitter. So we can see here, if something was to excite the granule cell, it would excite the Purkinje cell, which would then inhibit the deep nuclei. Golgi and basket cells are here to prevent this system from becoming overactive. Golgi cells will directly inhibit the granule cells, and the basket cells will inhibit the Purkinje cell. Okay, so let's back up a bit and take note that there are some tracts coming into the cerebellum through the peduncles from the brainstem and beyond. So from here and in. These are called cerebellar afferent fibers because they're going at the cerebellum. These fibers come in and bring information to the cerebellar cortex. They come in all the way to the cortex. Let's see how they go about this. So as you recall, they're coming in through the arbor vitae to the cortex, so that's going to be from down here, the arbor vitae to the cortex. So some fibers will come in and connect directly to the granule cells. These are called mossy fibers. Pathways that fall into this category include the rostral spinocerebellar pathway, the anterior spinocerebellar pathway, the posterior spinocerebellar pathway, the cuneo-cerebellar pathway, pontocerebellar pathway, reticulospinocerebellar pathway, and the hypothalamo-cerebellar pathway. These fibers excite the granule cells with glutamate in a weak but high frequency fashion. Some fibers come in and travel straight to the dendrites of the Purkinje cells. These are called climbing fibers. The pathway that falls into this category is the olivocerebellar pathway. These climbing fibers excite the Purkinje cells, and the excitation is very powerful. And this is really helpful because these fibers are involved in balance.